So what type of progressive am I? That is an excellent question. I think the easiest way to answer that is I'm a Bernie Sanders progressive, not just because I believe in the policies that Bernie's been advocating for literally the last 40 years, but it's about the model of how he ran, which is entirely on a grassroots platform, right? Grassroots meaning detached from corporate spending, detached from large individual influence. It is something that is of the people and by the people. And I think when you run on a grassroots platform, you are making it about the most important thing that governance, that policy, that leadership is about. It's about people. It's about community. And that's something that I really want to take out to Washington, D.C. I don't think there's anyone that could tell me that someone running in a grassroots fashion is the wrong way to run. For me, it is the right way to run, because how you win matters just as much as winning in and of itself. And that's something I think we all need to remember. What is my favorite thing about Denver? That is a great question. That is a hard question to answer because there are a lot of things to love about Denver, but for me, it's about people. It's about the culture. It's about the communities that have made Denver a very special place for me to live and grow up in. What I mean by that is, if you go to Five Points, for example, if you go to the North Side, if you go to Sakura Square in downtown, you'll see communities that have been here for quite literally decades. And they offer such a vibrant culture, such a unique flavor to Denver, and they have for so many years. But I think what's been tough for me to see is that a lot of these communities have unfortunately been forced to move out of our city and into different places in Colorado. And for me, what I want to do in this campaign is make people remember those things, that aspect of our culture that make Denver a really special place to be. And I honestly think that if more people were aware of those communities, of that culture, of the things that have made Denver such an amazing place for so long, I honestly think that they would act and make decisions to protect those communities. And so that is definitely my favorite part about Denver, which again is about people, it's about culture, it's about community. How do you pay for some of the policies that you're advocating for? This is an excellent question. This might actually be one of the most important questions that I think, if I'm being quite honest, some of us of progressives have not answered in the most effective way, especially when it comes to the fiscal component. So let me try to break it down in the way that I think about it. For the vast majority of this country's history, we have operated in deficit spending. And what I mean by that is when we choose to finance large reform, large policy ideas, we always have to raise the deficit. We always have to raise the debt. And I think what's been frustrating to see is certain individuals in Congress use that argument against wide-scale reform. Right now in Congress, we're talking about greenlighting a defense spending bill that is worth almost $10 trillion over the course of the next several years. And no one seems to be saying anything about the concerns of increasing the deficit or the debt for that. But when it comes to other things like healthcare, when it comes to things like the environment, when it comes to things like criminal justice reform, we always get into that mentality of, oh, well, we can't pay for that. But I want you all to know that the United States of America is the wealthiest country in the history of this world. We can quite literally pay for anything. And for me, it's about making a choice. It's about making a choice that says, you know what, maybe instead of spending or increasing the deficit on, billion-dollar, trillion-dollar wars that last for 20 years that do quite literally nothing for the public safety or the public health or the public economy of our country, let's invest in healthcare. Let's make healthcare a human right. Let's create an economy through the Green New Deal. Let's put the unhoused into homes. And if we choose to finance those sorts of policies, if we choose to make the decision to invest into our people and our communities, we can transform this country. We can see every human being have healthcare. We can see every single person have a place to live. And that's why I think it's important for us to choose to make that investment. Not into corporations, not into industrial complexes, but into people, right? Into communities, into policies that not only will benefit our generation, but our children and our children's children, and give them the opportunities that I think so many of us have been able to experience. Is the growth that is taking place in Denver a positive thing? Again, this is another excellent question. Every city, every state benefits from growth, but I think what we're seeing right now is growth that is occurring for corporations, growth that is occurring for the real estate industry, is coming at the cost of human beings. It's coming at the cost of Denver's citizens. It's coming at the cost of Denver's communities. I think it's essential that as we grow, we need to think about the fundamental question of how do we include every single person in that trajectory and not leave working class families, not leave the communities that have built Denver into this city that it is behind. We should be putting people at the front of the priority list. We should be putting small businesses, which in my opinion is the backbone of Denver's economy, at the forefront of that growth, because I don't want to see another chapter like the pandemic take place and even more small businesses getting wiped out and in the process being replaced by another Starbucks, another Walmart. I want our communities, I want our small business owners, I want our citizens and the families and the people that have made Denver a great place to be, to benefit from the growth that happens in the future. Where do I stand on public investments into Colorado? So basically, how do we pay for it, right? How do we pay for healthcare? How do we pay for a green economy? That's kind of how I'm interpreting this question. When I get that question, the first thing I think about is we never seem to ask this question when it comes to doing things like financing multi-trillion-dollar wars in different parts of the world. We don't ever really ask this question when we're bailing out banks and other corporate entities after they've melted down the economy. But we do seem to ask this question a lot more when it comes to things like, how do you pay for healthcare? How do you pay for a green economy? And what I want everybody to recognize in this moment is that the United States is literally the wealthiest country in the history of this world. We have the ability to pay for anything. In fact, as of now, we are in the process of financing a multi-trillion-dollar defense budget that is worth triple the conversation that's taking place with the reconciliation package, right? It is about choosing what deficits to finance, and at this point in time, it is essential for us to stop benefiting the pocketbooks of corporations and the wealthiest amongst us and investing into things like mental health, investing into the environment, investing into our futures as a people, as a community. And I assure you, profit is there to be gained when you invest into the people. And I want everyone to recognize that it has been a choice of ours. So it's time for us to invest into our people. Let's invest into our infrastructure. Let's invest into our healthcare. Let's invest into our education. And I promise, when we put money into the hands of real human beings and give them the ability to take that step forward, we will see a thriving economy. We will see an economy that doesn't just work for the wealthiest amongst us, that doesn't just work for corporations, but that works for every single human being in our state. And that is a future worth financing, in my opinion. What is my biggest concern or criticism of the Democratic Party? Man, y'all gonna get me in trouble with this question. I'll start by saying that I'm probably the biggest self-loathing Democrat that I know. And the reason I feel that way, and I actually think a lot of Americans and a lot of Coloradans in particular feel that way, is because unfortunately, I see leadership and Democrats in Congress, they're putting their party over country. And what I mean by that is, if you talk to Democrats, progressives, especially people who are in office right now, I would be willing to bet that most people would say healthcare is a human right. And that right now, the cost of healthcare is something that we immediately need to address. I think that there are a lot of Democrats, especially in this very state, who say that climate change is a global catastrophe and we need to figure out how to not melt our planet down to the ground. But when push comes to shove and when it comes to passing laws and making decisions that actually walk the walk and actually benefit the country, we're falling very short of that marker. And it is painful to see leaders who recognize the same problems that we all recognize choose to not act to fix those problems. And I think that's rooted in something far deeper than the individual. It's rooted in the fact that there are a lot of Democrats right now who accept a lot of money from special interest groups and corporations that prevent them from acting on their values. And that's why we're running a grassroots campaign, is so that when we get to Congress, we get to act on our values and we get to make decisions that actually help the people. And that, in summary, is my biggest beef with the Democratic Party. Word. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll definitely be doing this again, so catch you on the next one, y'all. Peace.